And while we're going live, I can ask everyone to mute themselves until we get going.
Uh-oh. 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 Sharon, you're not muted.
Recording in progress.
I'm lost.
Okay, we're live. This is Willie Jones, and I'm president of Women for Progress, and you tuned in to a special edition of Women for Progress Radio. We want to give kudos and thank you tonight to our executive producer, Ms. Juanita Brown, who has pulled this incredible table together for us tonight. At the end of each year, Women for Progress Radio Network, we assemble incredible women, mostly from our organization, and sometimes they're invited guests beyond the organization, to come together and talk about the major issues that impacted our communities and us as women over this past year. And of course, we've been doing that now for almost 11 years, and we're excited to be at the table tonight with another group of incredible women that we're going to be having lots of conversations for the next hour. And we'll try to keep our conversation to the hour, but if it goes a little bit past, we'll be okay with that also. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're live here on Facebook. We're also live at womenforprogressradio.com. And know that every time that we go live with any of our broadcasts, if that's part of our network, that you can always get us at womenforprogressradio.com. I know many people say I don't do social media, but I will go to a website. So if you go to womenforprogressradio.com, every time we go live, it automatically is broadcast there also. We're also available on all of where you get your podcasts, whether it's Spreaker, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast. And even we're available on Lexus. So some mornings you're getting ready for work and you say, Lexus, play Women for Progress Radio, and one of our shows will pop up and you can listen to us there. But we want to thank you so much for supporting this network now for over 11 years. The purpose of this network is to disseminate information about the issues that impact our communities and make sure specifically women have voice. But we bring all of our leadership throughout our communities and experts from all over to have these conversations, to bring not only voice to them, but also solutions and ideas and perspectives. So we're so excited about the growth of this network and how it continues to grow. So I want to get right into our conversation because we have an hour here and we got a lot to talk about tonight. And so if you have any questions, I have our Facebook here that I can look and check on your questions. And my co-host tonight, Ms. Teresa Jones, who's one of the most incredible women on the planet. And you all need to keep your eyes on her because I'm telling you, she is on a path to we're just so excited about having her. And it's been a long time since her and I have been at the table together. So I'm extremely excited to have her tonight. Teresa, give me a shout out and say hello to our audience again.
Hi, everyone. I was just saying to Ms. Willie and our panelists, it has been a while since I've been on Women for Progress radio. And I'm really excited to have this conversation to end up the year, because it's been a long year for all of us. There's so much to happen, starting with the beginning of the year with the insurrection and so many other things throughout the year. So I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say, and I'm excited to go through some of our topics for today.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So we're going to get right going. I want to start by allowing my guests tonight to introduce themselves very briefly, and tell us your name and where you're sitting at tonight. So whatever organization or however you like yourself introduced, please do so tonight. And then we're going to jump right into our conversation. And I would like to start with Miss Teresa Jones, who's my co-host. Teresa, tell our audience who may just got into town and don't know about the incredible work that you've been doing and how incredible you've been to this organization. And then others can just chime in until we get everyone introduced.
Thank you so much. For those of you listening in, my name is Teresa Jones. I'm from the Delta, Sharkey County specifically, but I claim the whole Delta. And I spent a great deal of my life in and out of politics, where I worked in D.C. for a little while. Then I came back home and worked on some campaigns. And now I'm in law school. So that's why I've kind of been absent. My interests, my legal interests are, in the past has been in government law, and now I'm kind of focusing on business and environmental. I also run a nonprofit for girls in the Mississippi Delta, helping rural kids get access to women in traditionally male-dominated careers. Things have been a little tough for them, especially rural students during COVID, but that's something I've been doing since 2015. And for Women for Progress, I'm really at Miss Willie's disposal. Yeah. But I've been helping with the radio show, which I love, and just kind of trying to lend an extra hand whenever I'm needed to expand some of the needs of the organization. So that's who I am, and I'm trying to be brief. So we can go around the horn to everyone else before we can get into our topics.
Okay, Miss Jennifer Collins.
Good evening. Thank you, Miss Willie. Thank you for Teresa, both for inviting me, as well as Miss Juanita, our producer. I am Jennifer Riley Collins. I am the owner and principal consultant for J. Riley Collins Consulting these days. And at J. Riley Collins Consulting, we are focused on helping good people do good. The favorite part of my job is helping organizations with legal compliance, as well as ensuring that we continue to move forward good policies in the state of Mississippi. And so I do policy advocacy work and strategic project implementation consultation. I am an attorney and a retired United States Army officer. Thank you, Ms. Woolley, and I will pass it to Ms. Angela Stewart.
Thank you, Jennifer. I am Angela Stewart. I'm Vice President of Women for Progress. I serve as archivist at the Margaret Walker Center at Jackson State University. We just finished our annual Kwanzaa celebration, which was a wonderful hybrid celebration that's still getting comments about. So those are the kinds of things I do for Women for Progress.
Okay.
And I'll pass it on to Judge Crystal Wise Martin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Wise Martin, and it's such a pleasure to be here with everyone this evening. I currently serve as Hinds County Chancery Court Judge, Subdistrict 2, and I've been doing so for almost 3 years now. We actually run again for re-election in 2022. I've been a part of Women for Progress and always very impressed with the programs that are going on and the dynamic women who make everything happen. But one thing that is very special to me about Women for Progress, my mother was the Chancery Court judge in this very seat before I became judge. And she tells me that her very first campaign speech was in the living room on Miss Stewart, and that's where she got her start. So when they talk about Women for Progress being there to support the community and activate people, it's so very true. That's how my mother got her start in 1989, and Women for Progress is still relevant today. So I'm an attorney, have been practicing for over 20 years, but the part that is so much more important to me is watching our children grow. I personally have 4 children of my own, PJ, Daniel, Alyssa, and Anna, 13, 15, 17, 19. And what we're doing now is what's necessary to make sure that their world is good moving forward. So thank you all for having me, and I will pass it along to, have we got Miss Pauline Rogers?
Yes.
Okay. I can't see anybody else. Angela Grayson?
Angela, are you with us? Okay, Angela.
Hey, good everyone.
Hello.
I wasn't sure if you could hear me at first. Well, my name is Angela Grayson. I'm the Advocacy and Outreach Coordinator at the Lighthouse Black Girls Project, where we do focused programming for Black girls and women throughout the Southeast, particularly here in Jackson, where we are headquarters. One of our biggest initiatives right now for myself is the Black Women Vote Coalition, which we are forming or have formed to build political power for Black women. And that's where my passion lies. I am also a campaign manager in the area, and I have a huge heart for community organizing and community activism.
Wonderful.
I think that she was, Judge Wise was giving it over to Miss Rogers, so I'll do so.
Hi, I'm Pauline Rogers, co-founder of the Reaching and Educating for Community Hope Foundation, an organization for people impacted by crime and incarceration. I am justice impacted meaning in simple terms, I'm formerly incarcerated. And I do this work because I experienced this work firsthand. And I am on the quest to end mass incarceration and to help holistically reintegrate those coming out of prison back into the community, and a quest for democracy for restoring their vote. And I will pass it on to Portia.
Thank you, Pauline. I am so glad to be here tonight. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to sit at this table with all of these fabulous and very accomplished women. My name is Portia Ballard, Espy. I am president and CEO of the Mississippi Urban League, and I'm the new president and CEO. Only been in my role now for 6 months, but I've loved every day of those 6 months that I've been in this position. Our work is focused on enabling African Americans and others in underserved communities to secure economic and self-reliance, parity, and civil rights. And we are working every day to make sure that we can do that. Like Judge Wise said, we are trying to leave a legacy for our children that is positive, that they can walk on the same road with equity and hold their heads high and be considered citizens of these United States and enjoy the rights that everyone else enjoys in this country. Thank you for having me again, and I look forward to tonight's conversation.
Okay.
Let's see, who can I kick it over to? Nikita, I'm gonna kick it over to you.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. It is an honor to be at the table with such amazing women. Thank you so much for the invite. My name is Nikita Pikem, and I am a perinatal guide for moms. My practice is Golden Aura Wellness Co., and we're a perinatal wellness practice that focuses on healing moms, healing babies, and eventually healing the community. And so in my role, I help moms through counseling, mental health awareness, and birth work. So I'm a doula as well as a yoga. And so our practice focuses on a holistic approach in healing their mental wellness. We focus on mind-body connections. And so I'm just really passionate about moms, because I'm a mom too as well. And I'm passionate about moms achieving health equity in the birthing spaces, at their homes, in the community. Thank you so much for having me. I will be passing it on to Miss Sharon.
Sharon,
Yep.
I think you're up next.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sharon Grisham Stewart. For those that don't know me, I've been serving as the coroner of Hinds County for the last 23 years. Not quite 23. It'll be 23 in about a couple of days. January will make it 23. But I'm on call 24 hours a day. I investigate deaths that affect the public interest. Most of those are going to be deaths that occur outside of a medical facility. However, there are some deaths that do occur within a medical facility that also fall under my jurisdiction. I'm very happy to be here to be a part of this group with all these interesting women from all different walks of life. So I'm interested to hear from them as well.
Okay. Who else do we have that we haven't introduced?
Miss Willie, I think we have everybody.
Okay, wonderful. So let's get started. And I want us to jump. I think we should get the big rock off the table right off the bat. Of course, I think the thing that has driven everything that we've done in 2021, whether positively or negatively, is COVID. And I think when I sent this topic out, I said friend or foe, because there's been some amazing things that have come out of COVID in addition to the many challenges that we've had. So I want to start off our conversation tonight to talk about, just get everyone an opportunity to talk about how COVID has impacted them, their lives, and their work, and whether it's negative or have brought some really great perspectives from you. So talk a little bit about how you think COVID has impacted us in our community. And I'll start by letting our co-host begin with that particular question.
Thank you, Miss Lily. As you can imagine, COVID for me has been just a lot because it's impacted, I started law school during the pandemic. So all of my classes were 100% online for the first year, and for the second or some kind of blend of the two. And it was difficult because I'm an auditory learner, so I like asking questions and I like listening to lectures, and so it's really hard to ask questions when you're on Zoom and you have 50 to 70 other people in the classroom on the screen. So that was one of the challenges. But on the other end, I have never spent this much time at home, and that has actually been fulfilling for me to just rest and be home. And I think for folks who know me, I'm always on the go. I'm always bouncing around a different city, a different place, and it's been just really fulfilling to just sit still, to just sit at home. I've kind of gotten into planning and got all these plants in my house now, and just kind of reconnecting with friends and family. But I do think it's taken a toll on people's mental health. Everyone knows someone who's had COVID. A lot of us know people who have actually passed away due to the pandemic, due to the coronavirus, and that's obviously been just taking a toll on everyone. We're all afraid, am I going to be the one to have the extreme reaction to it, or will I be asymptomatic? And that's that constant worry for almost 2 years. That's been a lot. It's been a lot for me. I know it's been a lot for my friends. And as a millennial, I just feel like we've lived through everything already. We've lived through, 2008 crises, then another crisis, and now a pandemic. And I just feel like we can't get a break. I'm thankful to you all, obviously, but the perspective that I've had from a lot of my friends and people in my generation, we're just tired of it. Like we're just so sick and tired of it. And I have friends on one end who are like, never going without a mask ever again. This is the new normal. And I have friends on the other end who are saying, no, let's get rid of it. We're sick and tired. We have medicine. Take the medicine and just try to get back to normal. And I think I fall somewhere in between, because I have friends with autoimmune disorders and I have elderly family members who I really want to protect. And I'm also just kind of trying to get into my own career. And it's very difficult to do that when all you see are faces on screens. So long-winded response. It's just, I've been kind of all over the circle when it comes to the pandemic. Like, been on this extreme, and now I am so tired of it. I'm so tired of the coronavirus.
So Ms. Willie, I'm going to jump in. My response, I don't think will be as long-winded, but I understand, Teresa, I truly do. I think I will sum up COVID in two ways. It has been a friend and a foe. As a friend, for many of us, it has been a moment of self-actualization. Very often when we are in company with other people, we find ourselves measuring ourselves against other people, against someone else's success. But then when we have had this moment of being in space with ourselves, we have realized that we can find humor in situations, that we understand what is necessary for our own self-fulfillment. And we find enjoyment and satisfaction in accomplishing things. There are so many people became innovative during COVID, whether you became innovative by jumping on TikTok and bringing humor to yourself and others and making fun of your family and being isolated. We have come to a point of self-actualization. The other piece, I think, that is foe, but not necessarily foe in the traditional sense as if it were an enemy. What it has done is COVID has revealed in a very real and transparent way the disparities that are faced by so many in our communities. So maybe foe to some others, but not necessarily to us, because we know as African American women, many of us who have been blessed and privileged to not really struggle anymore. But I can tell you my path was one where I've stood on a welfare line, so to speak. And so I know what it is to not have. I cannot imagine, and nor do I have to imagine, because it has played out on the front page of our papers and on the television screen, the disparities from healthcare to economics that are faced by African American women, and it is played out for the world to see. And so maybe foe to some, because it has illuminated the disparities that exist in this country. Many of us who are on this screen work to overcome on a daily basis.
And Nikita, you work in mental health, and I know around all the stuff that you do around health coaching, mental health was a big deal, not only coming that COVID brought to the table, but everything that we had, the challenges that we had to go through for 2021. So talk a little bit about how that COVID has impacted our mental health. And also, I think there's been a lot of highlights coming out of there. There's people that were dealing with a lot of mental health issues even before COVID. And COVID kind of made us face things in a different way. So talk about that a little bit.
Sure thing. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think of COVID is trauma. Because for me, it was traumatic. And it was a collective traumatic thing that it caused a lot of division, and it also caused innovation. But COVID has created what we call complex trauma, right? And so complex trauma is when there's this multiple instance of trauma over time. So we've been dealing with this for about 2 years. And you know, as humans, we have this need, and we're kind of designed for what we call homeostasis, for security, stability. And COVID has kind of dysregulated that. We don't have the stability that we normally had, because we don't know if there's going to be a lockdown. We don't know if our kids' school is going to be shut down. We don't know the changes. So we're kind of playing it by ear. Even now, with the outbreaks that's happening now, we kind of don't have that stability. And so what happens is our bodies feel that. And depression has increased. And my field is moms. And, you know, moms, pandemic moms, they call themselves pandemic moms because they have the babies in the pandemic. They are really experiencing perinatal mood and anxiety issues at a high rate, because here you're pregnant in the pandemic. You know, as a doula as well, what we saw was a lot of the hospitals were not allowing doulas in. And so moms were in panic. They had a lot of anxiety. They felt like they didn't have support. And so it was this uncertainty that caused a lot of anxiety, caused a lot of depression. And again, like, because we come from a holistic perspective, a mind-body perspective, we need that stability. We need that homeostasis. And I feel that over time, if we're not aware of this, if we're not aware and kind of doing the things like yoga, breath work, seeing our therapist, over time, when like 15 years down the line, when we see a mass, our body is going to be triggered to remember this pandemic and go back to that state of instability and fear of things that may be shaken up a little bit. And so, yes, we're seeing a high rate of depression, a high rate of anxiety because of this instability that we're facing with COVID.
And Angela, let's talk a little bit about the historical perspective of this, and not only the impact in 2021, when we look at our past, and we also begin to look at our future of how the 2020 and 2021 has really begun to design where we are and what's happening with us. You know, we had the George Floyd situation where that was just a combination of so many different things. It was race, it was the injustice around our policing and mental health also, so many different things. And race was a big deal, even in the midst of COVID. When we looked at who suffered and who did not suffer, who got money, who did not get money. Talk to us about that impact of all of those particular issues around justice and all of those things that came to the table.
Okay, thank you, Willie. I grew up at Fair Street Baptist Church, which was founded in 1893. Our current pastor, Dr. Hickman Johnson, did a series of articles based on Reverend C.A. Greer, Chester Arthur Greer, who was pastor during the influenza epidemic of 1918-1919. And you have to understand that concurrent with that were the race riots. You know, 1919 became known as the Red Summer because of the extreme violence, not just in the South, but in the Midwest and even out West that was happening to African Americans. And so we do have this history, and going back to Nikita, of trauma, emotional trauma, based on insecurity in terms of health, in terms of our physical being, in terms of safety. And it's a historical thing. But what Reverend Johnson discovered is that they found a way to not only endure, but thrive during this. And it was that thing that, you know, I always quote James Weldon Johnson, who talked about, you know, we have come over a way that tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. But just because of that doesn't mean we sit down and we stop. It makes us go forward and keep trying and moving on. So what we can learn from our past that we can take into this pandemic and into these racial issues is how our ancestors, they weren't content to just survive. They wanted to thrive, you know. I work at Jackson State, which was founded the year Reconstruction ended by former slaves and the American Baptist Home Mission Society to train teachers and preachers. And it was, you know, there was always this concept of there are no Alps. And that was a quote that was attributed to Hannibal. When his soldiers said, we can't get over those mountains with these elephants. He said, what mountains? There are no Alps, meaning that we can make it through anything. And I think it's important for our children to understand that, yeah, we have problems, whether it's race or it is health care and access to health care or pandemic, but we have to keep working, because one of the things, and I think Jennifer touched on this, is the innovation that's come out of COVID. Mm-hmm. Realizing that, hey, maybe there were some things that weren't working before COVID, mm-hmm. and COVID has given us a time to look at those things and say, well, this is giving us time to restructure and move forward in ways to that, and so back to that friend or foe. That's that way that COVID has been a friend.
And Portia, with the Jackson Urban League and specifically even the National Urban League, which has been in the communities of color for a very, very long period of time, and their goal is to provide solutions and opportunities for our communities, as Angela stated, to thrive. How have the Urban League been addressing some of these issues around COVID, and what are some of the things that organization has found through all of this process?
Well, thank you for asking that question, because that was something we as a group, the new presidents and CEOs within the Urban League, talked about today. We have looked at COVID as both a friend and a foe. A foe because it has claimed the lives of a lot of the people in the communities that we love, that we know and love. It has been a challenge in certain communities, which we understand, to even get the vaccination. Mm-hmm. They talk about shots in arms. Not everyone has an opportunity like others do to get shots in arms, and it is our goal at the Urban League to make sure that we find out where those places are, those places and spaces where people don't have equitable access to the vaccine that can get those vaccines. We have a program called All In. We want everyone to be all in for the vaccine and to mitigate COVID's impact on our world. And we are working with Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network, the Centers for Disease Control, and the National Urban League in this effort. So we've tried to target communities where we know vaccination rates are low. And we've seen in Mississippi an increase in the African American population that has received the vaccine. So we're doing everything that we can to identify opportunities to vaccinate. We have drive-through community baby showers. That's one of the things that we do. So moms who are disadvantaged, moms-to-be and current moms, can come through. They don't even have to get out of their cars. We have a nice bag full of things that they would need, like onesies, toothbrushes, all the things that a new mom would get at a shower. So she drives through, but she comes to a table and she gets a bag full of those goodies. But then we have community partners like the Jackson Safer Childbirth Initiative. Will also be there at the next station to give bags and information to those same moms. They pull up a little further and there's another table with someone from the Department of Health's Oral Health Division to talk to them about taking care of their baby's oral health. And then at that last station, we have an opportunity for them to be vaccinated. Jackson Hines Comprehensive as a partner. So we try to make sure that we can get that message out in our communities. Even during Halloween, we gave candy, but there was a message with all of the candy that said COVID can be scary. You know, we want you to get your mom and your dad vaccinated. We want you to be vaccinated. So what we're doing at the Urban League is trying to make sure that we are connected to communities, talking to our communities to find out what is it that we can do to help you to thrive, to help you to build bridges where there are gaps in the equity that is being doled out. And we create our strategic plans around those efforts. And I want you all to be on the lookout because we are doing a 10-city listening tour. We're going to be going to the top 10 cities across the state based on population to ask the questions about what's keeping you up at night as it relates to education, jobs, justice, housing, and health. And we want to hear the people's voices, and we want to make sure that what we do is customized for the people. And all of our urban leagues across the nation are different in that they focus on whatever those serious problems are that their communities have identified as being a need there. And we try to make sure that we can fill in for that need. One of the things, too, as far as COVID being a friend, some of us have realized that there may not be a need for a brick and mortar anymore. We thought we had to see each other sitting at a desk. We thought we had to have a cubicle or an office. But we found out that some people are getting work done at home, and heaven forbid, some are even getting more done at home. Yeah. So that's a formula for saving money for organizations that can be put into other things in the community, other programs that can help lift up communities. So I think we have to look at all of those things that are negative and try to make sure that we have a plan to mitigate the negative parts of that and figure out what the positives are. If the positives outweigh, then we need to run with those and make sure that we can come out of this better than we went into it.
I think one of the things that everybody has been saying tonight so far, and even when Angela talked about the history of what has gone on in our communities, in our lives, in our culture, in our race, is that this is not the first major pandemic that we've gone through, or major obstacle that we've gone through as a community as a whole. And I think for us as women, I think out of the conversation I want people to walk away from tonight is to understand that this was a major deal. This was something unique for us. But let's be very, very clear that this won't be it. I mean, and I want to move into this conversation. I know we're talking about the community as whole, but let's be clear, this thing on a large scale is about women and how we drive this thing. Whether it's our communities, our business, our families, or whatever, we are leaders for those particular areas of our community. And so what we want to do is to make sure that women, when all of these things, it doesn't matter if it's a tornado, if it's a storm, or whatever the situation might be, these issues impact women first because of all the particular roles that we carry. So I want to shift our conversation a little bit tonight about those particular things that impact us and what we need to do as we move forward. And one thing I want to touch on is climate change. And I think for women, that particular topic, climate change, means so much more than the world looks at it. And I want to read a little bit of information that I was sent recently that I think was an eye-opener for me, and it began a great conversation. Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security has put together a great piece of research, and it's called Women and Climate Change, the Impact and Agency in Human Rights, Security, and Economic Development. Because I think when we talk about whether it be this pandemic or the next one, that we have to look at the economic impact to women as a whole. And when it impacts women, it impacts the whole world. And it says, as the world confronts the borderless and multidimensional effects of climate change, it is imperative that we understand the impact of climate change on women, as well as the importance of their agency in addressing its threats. At this important juncture, we hope this report will fill a critical knowledge gap and demonstrate why it is important to include women's voices, perspectives, and participation at all levels of decision making and all levels of adaptation and mitigation. The impacts of climate change, whether it be drought, flood, extreme weather, increased incidence of disease, and growing food and water security, disproportionately affect the world's 1.3 billion poor, the majority of whom are women. Although women are forced to bear the brunt of the consequences of climate change, they have been systematically excluded from decision-making mechanisms and denied agency in deciding when and how to overcome those vulnerabilities that we face. And that moves us into this conversation about more women in political office. Because as we begin to experience these particular pandemics, whether it be climate change or other issues around disease or food insecurities, we women have to be at the table of the policy making process, because those things are what impact us. And all the research reveals, this is just one piece of research, but if you just put that in your Google, you'll find much more research across the board on a global scale that over and over again that says women are the ones who are being impacted. Even when we look at what the impact was to COVID, the first line says that the most people who were significant, the demographics that were significant impacted is women. So I want to move into this conversation about women in public office and the need for more us at the decision-making table. We in 2021 had some really great opportunities when we look all across the country, from Virginia to New York to North Carolina. Women, and specifically women of color, they really made some really great thrives. Women won offices that were long-standing and had many firsts. So let's talk about tonight the why it's important for us to engage more women in the political making process, and why now is the time. And I want to start with Ms. Jennifer Riley Collins, who's also had her hat in the ring a couple of times and have been working very hard. So Jennifer, can you start that conversation for us?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Willie. Thank you so very much. I will tell you, as I'm listening to the panelists and, and I'm looking at who's on here, I will tell you, the folk on this panel, Judge Wise Martin, Coroner Sharon Grisham Stewart, they can attest on the impact, because I have no doubt that the women and men, honestly, that come before Judge Martin, having to deal with policies that are put in place by people who very often don't look like us. Ms. Stewart having to, unfortunately, deal with the tremendous rise in crime that has resulted from people feeling isolated, dealing with that trauma that Dr. Pikem just talked about. I will tell you, it is imperative that we have women at the table when decisions are being made. We know that, particularly in a place like Mississippi, where women make up 49% of the state's workforce, but only a handful of women are at the decision-making table. Our legislature is getting ready to come back into session on January 4th. And women, I think it's only like 26 women, I think, of all of the seats that are held, whether you be Democrat or Republican in the Mississippi legislature. And 26 might be a generous number, to be very honest with you. But it is an unrepresented number. And so we have to have people at policy tables who think about what impact is that going to have, because I will tell you, based on experience, because I've asked legislators before, did you do an economic impact assessment? Did you do a racial impact? Did you do a gender impact study before you made that decision? And very often the answer is no. And there's nothing in our laws that compelled them to do that. Women have to be asked, they say, statistically 7 times before we decide to run for office. I tell you, it didn't take me 7 times. I got asked and I ran, because I see, just like Judge Wise Martin, just like, the work that Ms. Pauline does and Ms. Portia does, we see the impact of not having us at the table. When decisions are made about what child support is going to be like, or decisions are made about, gun safety, or the lack thereof, because there is a direct correlation between a lack of gun safety measures and requirements and the increase in gun violence. And we're seeing that play out. Mississippi has one of the most liberal liberal laws concerning gun ownership and whether or not guns should be required to be locked up in a person's home. And I will tell you, I'm not anti-gun, so anybody out there listening, please know I carry a firearm as well. But I hold my firearm safely. I make sure that if there are children in my house, I lock it up. Because I don't want anybody hurt. But again, because I'm a mom, for many years, even though I was a single mom, I didn't have a gun in my house. Those are the type of things that we think about that other folk don't think about, because they are more interested in prioritizing their own personal and political agenda than they are prioritizing people. It's critical, Ms. Willie, that we have women at these policy-making tables, that you say yes when you're asked to run, and even if you're not asked, that you just raise your hand and say, you know what, that's an empty seat. And it doesn't have to be at a statewide level. Run for school board because your children in school. Run for your local county seat or your local city alderman or council person, because they're making decisions. When you elect that mayor, you elect that police chief. Police chiefs are appointed by our mayors. And so if you're not happy with the police chief, don't be mad at the police chief. He just got the job that he was appointed to do. Be mad at the mayor. But the deal is, if we're not in those seats, they're not listening to issues that impact us. And what we're worried about is what impacts our children, because when we take our seat, we bring everybody else with us.
And ladies, we're going to be on this topic for a minute because this is everything. So you jump in. I'll call some of you out. But Miss Pauline, let's hear from you.
When it comes to climate control, I think about the voiceless. And everything that I do, the incarcerated population is impacted. They were impacted in COVID, in that prior to COVID hitting here in the state like it did, there were already in 2019 almost 70 deaths. In 2020, 100, it was triple. And then even this year, it's already double digits. And I know that had a lot to do with COVID, but it also has a lot to do with climate change. Even women who are now medically, and some of it's being studied and some of it's not, the studies haven't been completely laid out. Women who aren't even age eligible for mammograms are already stage 4 and metastasized cancer from particular cancers that are grown in their body. The pH is off in our environment. The pH is off in the air, in the water. Everything, the pH balance is off, which means it creates imbalance in everything. Women who have had hair down to their backs all of their lives, all of a sudden is thin. The texture has changed. It's climate. A lot of it is climate related. And this is something that didn't know I would be talking a lot about the climate, but I've seen it even in the heat index inside the prison, astronomical change, that they have had to get commercial sized fans inside the prison. And I know this because I lived in those horrendous cells, that they've had to change how they cool or heat the place. Same buildings, facility, but having to try to find out how to cool them off. And in state prisons in Mississippi, there is not central air, period, in the prison system. So climate change has impacted everything. When you go outside, your vitamin D level is off in your body because you're really not getting the ray of sun, although you may be out in the sun, but the sun is not coming out at times when you expected the sun to be out. Neither is the rain, the snow, the wind, etc. So it's impacting everything. And the foods we eat. So if the imbalance, pH balance is off in everything else, it's off in the food that's growing in the ground, the soil. Everything is off, which is impacting our bodies.
You know what, Miss Pauline, I want to jump back in real quick, Miss Willie, because I want to come back to this climate change piece again. And y'all, I'm not pointing fingers, but the reality is there is a need for improved infrastructure, okay? Whether you want to call it Build Back Better or whatever you want to call it. But the reality is we saw last year, particularly in our capital city, what happens when you have infrastructure that has not been properly maintained. You know, it is ridiculous. Miss Pauline, what you said triggered my memory in that, you know, we didn't have to worry about whether you had something in your water when you had no water. When pipes were so frozen and water systems were so decayed that households in our capital city went without water for over a month. You know, all I can say is ridiculous. And when you know that women are only making 56 cents to the dollar made by a white man, 70 cents for white women, to the dollar made by a white man, that is ridiculous. And when you take that 56 cents and you got your kids at home because they here on COVID, so they're eating snacks in the house and lunch in the house and increase your costs, and now you got to go buy water too. That's an impact of climate change, because Mississippi has never seen Mississippi iced over like Hades froze over, okay? And the reality is that's an impact of climate change, but we got to keep up, because we need to make sure that when things like this happen, that our government can respond, because that is what our government is supposed to be for. It is supposed to be for the people. And so we got to make sure, again, that we're putting people in office who think about what happens when things like this happen and how it impacts for the people.
Angela Grayson, you're out there every day. You've been on running campaigns. You're working on an exciting new program in 2022. If this is not the time for women, when is it? What do we need to do in 2022 to make sure that women are at the table? What is the hard truth? What is what's the reality that we as women need to understand, so that when we walk into 2022 with our pocketbooks in hand, what do we need to do to make sure that we have more women at the policy making table in leadership roles, bringing a new form of leadership to our community? Talk to us about that.
Well, quite frankly, I just think it's real simple. To a point that Ms. Collins just made, is women have to step up and say that I'm willing to run for office. And I think that one of the things that we can do as a community of Black women is get behind other Black women who are qualified to run for office, and help them to lean into who they are already and what qualifies you uniquely as being a Black woman. Several of us have pointed out, just by talking about how we responded to COVID and the things that we saw come out of COVID needs, and in our response to climate change. All those things are things that Black women do every single day. We are already advocates for our children. We are already advocates for our best interests. Black women historically and consistently vote in our best interest, which happens to be the best interest of this country, right? So I think that if we would get behind Black women and help them lean more into who they are organically, just who you are as a Black woman, instead of what we've seen traditionally say, hey, you got to come off of that, you got to be more like a man, you need to be less emotional, less passionate. Forget that. Lean into that, because that's what's been keeping America afloat. We have always shown up when we need to. We have always been the backbone in the economy. Every industry that we are interested in is the highest grossing industry. That should tell us that we have a power. And I think we know that because even with introducing what do I think we should do, you mentioned bringing your pocketbook. We do have that power, and I think the best thing that we can do as Black women is pull that resource, pull all of our resources, a collective voice. When we talk about the issues that are coming out of climate control, food insecurity right now, Black children in Mississippi are impacted far more than any of their demographic. 1 in every 4 children in Mississippi have a food insecurity. So what does that mean? As we continue to see the climate change crises, the pandemic, as those things intensify, those numbers only increase for Black women and Black children more. So we already have needs. If we get together, put those passions, pull our resources, I think that we'll be in a really good place to put Black women in office. And I think one of the first steps to do is to help Black women understand that there is no pie in the sky ideal of what training you need. We need to lean into who we are.
I love that. And Teresa, my co-host, I want to give you a minute to chime in on this most important conversation around changing the face of leadership as we move into 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. First of all, I think what everyone else said kind of hit it on the nail. We have what we know is that when women are in power, when women have these leadership roles, they prioritize families. They prioritize public goods. This is data that's been accumulated since women started running for office across this country. And that doesn't depend on their political ideology. When women in general are in power, they prioritize families and working people and public goods. And that's why we need more women in running for office. And I'm really excited to hear about Ms. Angela's thoughts on this and Ms. Jennifer Riley Hollis on this, because they're out in the forefront. And I think, to the women out here listening, if you have it in your spirit, if it's something you're interested in doing, if it's something in your community you're wanting to change, you can do it. Start now. As your local council person, alder person, supervisor, mayor, there's so many different ways to affect change for your communities. You just got to get out there and do it.
And Miss Sharon, I wanna pipe in because you see what's happening in our communities from a whole different perspective, and sometimes it's not the most pleasant of opportunities where you're talking to families and you're seeing families grieve and dealing with issues of impact of all of this from the other end. So talk to us about that.
I'd like to start by saying, with COVID, we had an increase. Everybody knows that the homicide rate went up, but the death rate in general went up. I saw an increase of every type of imaginable death out there, the suicides, the drug overdoses, as well as the violent deaths, and then as well as the natural deaths when you add in the COVID numbers. It was a very challenging, and it's still a challenge for me and my staff, because when we're called out to a death, we don't know if the person that we're going to see examine is COVID positive or negative, but yet and still we have families of our own at home. So we have to be concerned when we go to these death scenes. Oftentimes there's body fluids that we come in contact with, and those body fluids can be hazardous to us. But again, like I said, we have families at home that we have to be concerned about. So it has been a challenging year, so much to the fact that I got a chance to experience what burnout feels like. Mm-hmm. I really have enjoyed my job. I like what I do. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I enjoy seeing death. I don't enjoy seeing people die. I don't enjoy seeing people lose their loved ones. But I do enjoy being able to make a difference in the lives of other people. And I think that the work that I do does that. I have seen these last 2 years, we've had increasing numbers of youth who have been involved in our violent crimes, as well as being the victim and the suspect. And that's troubling. What is going on in this world when we have teenagers, 14 years old, some of them as young as 14 and under, carrying assault rifles. I just don't understand it, you know. Then also with the climate change, I think depression is a part of the impact of climate change. So therefore, we see a lot of people that turn to drugs. So, you know, the drug deaths went up. I just don't know what to say. I do enjoy my job, but these last 2 years have been very challenging, like I said, to the point that I feel like I'm getting burnt out. And I feel like the good side of it has made me focus more on me, because I'm not immune. There's nothing stopping me from dying. Nothing, you know, I don't want someone to come visit me as the coroner, but yet and still, you know, on call 24 hours a day and get called 24 hours a day. Before COVID came, I averaged 4 hours of sleep a day. Now I barely get 2. And it's not lay down and wake up 2 hours later. It's, if you add it all together, it might equal that, you know. So I'm eager for COVID to go away. I'm eager for whatever has produced all the violence. I think the open carry law that we have, I don't think that was thought through very well. And we're seeing the impact of that. I can't say that all of the violent crime that we're seeing is a direct result of the open carry, but I have tried to look at larger municipalities who have far greater population than we do, but they have lower homicide rates. And the factor that I can see is that we have open carry. They don't.
Well, you made a very good point, and as we begin to get down to our last few minutes, and we may go a little over here, is because there's a couple of things I want us to just to touch on. And Sharon, you said it is all of this has made you look at you. And I think for a lot of women, that's what I'm hearing. Women have said, even before the pandemic, I was wearing 10 hats. Even before the pandemic, I was working 3 jobs. Even before the pandemic, I had issues around getting good education for my kid. All of these things, just didn't come to the table for women. And that's what I'm hearing when we talk about mental health. We talk about self-care. We talk about where we are as women when it comes to our pocketbooks, and we have realized that we have not prepared ourselves financially to deal with not only this pandemic, but for the next pandemic, the next climate change issue, the next catastrophe that's happened. We understand that we were not ready. We were not where we need to be. And now women are saying, I don't want to be there again. When the next time around, I'm going to walk into this thing differently. I'm going to be much more prepared, and I wanted to do it differently. And I care about how I feel doing it. I want to be made whole, and I want the power to be in my hands to be able to do that. And I want to touch on what you said about you in your particular role. It's you have a very challenged role as a woman being in that particular position also. And Judge Wise Martin, specifically in the work that you do every day, in your role even as a woman on that bench, because we have a lot of women who sit on the bench. We understand how important it is to have women really being there on those particular benches and addressing families and dealing with businesses and those kind of things. So talk just briefly about how important it is, even your role, of course, with all of your intelligence and your experience and background, but even you as being a woman sitting on the bench and how important that role is for you.
Thank you so much for that question. I want to go back to something that I heard Sharon Grisham Stewart say. I truly enjoy what I do, and I understand why God has allowed me to be there. Stemming from some of the criminal elements and deaths that she's seen, a lot of that eventually comes to the courts. The criminal cases are heard before the circuit court judges, and we all know the backlog of cases that has existed there even before COVID. and became even more egregious after COVID because you could not or did not know how to convene court. And even when you convene court, you did not have enough people to report to jury duty to form a full jury so that you can conduct even one trial. And that's not even counting the number of witnesses that had to be present. There's a lot that goes into attempting to try a case. You have to have the experts there from the state to opine with regard to whatever evidence you're trying to include. You have to have cooperation from the detention services, assuming that they're in the detention center, making sure that the criminal defendant even comes to court. So there's just a lot that goes into it, and trying to figure out how to get all of that done on a normal basis is difficult. But with COVID, it became even more difficult. And where I sit in the Chancery Court, where we hear a lot of the family court matters, divorce, child custody, child support, and amongst other things. But those cases in particular, we saw a huge uprise at people trying to come to court, people filing what we call contempt actions because one party or the other failed to follow the court's order, and they used the excuse of COVID, which in some instances may have been valid, but in other instances may not. And so it really caused a huge backlog for people gaining access to the court system, period. And so what do you do with that? Do you leave those cases unresolved? And by the United States Constitution, as well as the Mississippi Constitution, we're required to have the court system open at all times. So we talked about a lot of the foes, but one of the friends that came out of COVID was we have new ways of gaining access to the court system, and one of them is Zoom. Quite frankly, before COVID, I never knew what Zoom was. I have to admit I'm a little technologically challenged, so I would not have been looking for this avenue anyway, but I was forced to learn it. But it's also allowed more people to gain access to the court system at a reduced rate. You have to pay lawyers to come to court, and it's less time for that lawyer if the lawyer can simply go on the computer, hit a link, and argue the case rather than having to not prepare the case, get in a car, drive down to the courthouse, perhaps wait on their turn to be heard. And so a matter that may take a half a day or a whole day, sometimes more days, can take 20 minutes.
Wow.
And so that's one big change that I've seen or that we've seen. And I truly see all of the issues that people are talking about from a mental health state. And disproportionately, as everyone has already said, the women by far, at least from the people I've seen in court, seem to be the individuals who have the greatest burden or responsibility for ensuring that the children and the home needs are met. And so with the children being out of school and even doing a hybrid type system, you had to have those resources available in the home. And we already talked about children eating all day as opposed to at school, they're at least fed lunch, whether they eat it or not. They're not at home where they're eating all day, every day, day in and day out. So just those issues alone, I saw caused a huge burden, not only on that female in the household, but the conflict or the relationship at times between the custodial parent versus the non-custodial parent. There were even issues as small as the computer that was issued from JPS. Does that go with the child when they visit the other parent or not? So I'm glad to see that we're talking about these issues and that we are making them more real than I think we traditionally have in the past. And just being able to discuss them, I believe, helps us come to a conclusion. And another thing I want to go back to that we talked about earlier, we're having more women run for office. I think it's a wonderful idea. It's things that women think about, things that women have to do on a daily basis that, quite frankly, men just simply don't even think about. And so having a woman at the table when the decisions are being made is phenomenal. But one thing that I know that we can do better as women is support other women. Traditionally, well, one thing I noted is when you go around and you ask people, there are more African American women who are going to the poll to vote than African American men. Now, that's just my personal internal poll. So if that's true, that more African American women are going to the poll to vote than African American men, why do we still have so many more men in office than we do women? So what that tells me is that we as women are not truly supporting women who run for office the way that we could. And I'll even go as far as to say it's the way that we should. So, yes, you may have to ask that person that you know has potential 7 times or 70 times to run for office, because traditionally that has not been our role. So we may need some extra support, and that's okay. We need to do it.
Yeah.
When women run for office, if you look at the finance reports, women raise significantly less money than men. So when we're donating to those campaigns, for those who can, we need to put as much money behind the women as we do the men. And even if we can't help financially, there are other ways that we can help. We can have that sister's back. If there's a meeting going on that she's not present and you know her, stand up. Tell people that she's running for office. Tell them her great attributes and why she would be a wonderful person to serve in that position. And give them information on how to contact her if they want to know more information about her. Or give her a leg up or heads up when something is going on in the community so she can be aware and have a presence there. We don't do enough of those type things. And there was way back in the day, I know I'm going back to 1989, but there was a time when my mother ran for office, Judge Owens ran for office, and you could get volunteers, people who were not being paid to go and walk the streets, make phone calls, to actually assist in trying to help this person get elected. The more and more as I've learned about elections, everybody who works on the campaign, or a lot of people who work on the campaign, there is an expectation for payment. And not just pennies and nickels and dimes, a high, dollar amount, thousands of dollars. And that's something that if we're really supporting women, if we really believe what we're saying, that more women need to be at the table, these are things that we can do. That number one, that only cost our time, won't cost any money by volunteering and standing up for other women, so.
I got to jump in, Miss Willie. I know we're running on time, but I want to clarify something. And Chris, I appreciate what you just said. Y'all know that saying, all skin folk ain't kin folk, okay? All women ain't supporting women. So let me just go and put that out there. When you're selecting candidates to run, when you're selecting who you're going to support, make sure that those candidates align with your beliefs, with what you know is good for your community, what you know truly empowers women. You get it. You understand. Because the reality is, if we want to truly empower women, we want to make sure that women have secure jobs, that they have equal pay, that when they have a child, that they are not running risk of maternal mortality because they didn't have access to prenatal health care, because they didn't have access to health care. We want to make sure that when we bring a child into this world, that child is then given every opportunity at success. And if you're selecting candidates just because they're a woman, might be the wrong woman. Just saying.
Well, I want to expand. This is the question we're going to wrap up with, and I want you all to hold tight with me for just a minute, because I want to, as my executive producer says, I want to connect the dots a little bit broader. This issue that leads it is about leadership and more women at the table. But it's not just in the higher roles. We need women on all avenues, on city council, on PTA, leading PTA boards, wherever we are, that's where we need women. Even in the business arena. And so when we talk about supporting women and supporting each other, even if that woman is a business, whether she's selling real estate or where she's selling cookies or cakes or whatever it is, when somebody say to you, I need a pound cake, then you ought to have a list of sisters who make pound cakes in your wallet. You say, here you go. Call Miss Jane. She got some pound cakes. If you need a pair of pants hemmed up or you need something taken in, you ought to have a list of women who are able, alterationists that you can refer folks to. That's how we support each other. It's not just the big rocks. It's the small rocks. Okay? And we have to call on each other. We have to call on each other no matter what the situation is. We have to talk to each other. And I'm telling you, what moves people and what makes impact bigger than a dollar is when you share good information, when you share good resources with other women. Other opportunity, it could be a link, it could be a great app, it could be a person who has information, it could be an access to a grant. It could be information on something that's going to empower her kid. It could be a phone call that you make on behalf of that individual. That's how we move each other and support each other. Now, when we come to the table, when a woman is running for office, because we've done the work on the other side, we've supported each other in business, we've supported each other in our families, we've talked to each other. We developed a relationship with each other. Now, when we get ready to go to the poll, it's a no-brainer. Because when we show up at the poll, we're looking to see what good woman, what woman who is qualified. Now, as Jennifer stated, you not just because she's a woman, but is this a qualified individual that has what we need in order to change our community or to change whatever role that she's going to take. But it takes us making the small steps to get to the big steps. It's what we do every day in between the elections, in between the conversations that gets us to where we are right now. So I want to wrap up our conversation tonight, and I guess we're going to have a part two. I hope our executive producers listen to tonight. We're going to have to bring a whole, we got to have a part two to this conversation.
Miss Willie, I got one comment before you wrap up tonight.
Go ahead.
I thought you were actually going to get there when I heard you talk about women businesses, but I didn't hear you say it. So I want to kind of piggyback on that for 2 seconds. Women don't have the economic power that men have, so it's very hard for women to cut really big checks for women candidates. When you support their businesses, you're also supporting their expendable income, the extra cash that they can to support the causes that we care about and to support the candidates that we care about. So it's a lot of it has to do with exactly what Ms. Willie says. When it's not in an election year, you support these women who are trying to build economic power, who are trying to build their businesses and their wealth in their communities and expand. You know, there are so many young and middle-aged women who are starting companies and doing well and then going to another city, but they're not being supported in the same way because they're whether they're not known as well or because this is a woman you're not familiar with. When you support a woman's business growth, then she has a lot of extra resources to give to the communities, community organizations that we care about, and to support our efforts to have also political power. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why women don't have the expendable resources to support women candidates in the same way that our male counterparts and CEOs have. So I think that's very important. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on when I heard Ms. Willie get on these women business, because it's so important to our just kind of collective growth and ability to affect change across our state.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Teresa. I appreciate that. I appreciate you helping me connect the dots on that. That's exactly it. And I want us to wrap up with our conversation. Two things. Everything comes down to being grateful. I am so grateful for the incredible women that's on this panel tonight. I'm so grateful for my co-host, my executive producer, Miss Juanita Brown, and all the other over 300 women that is part of this organization. And women, I'm telling you, literally every day, the most amazing women that I come into contact with, sometimes I go home in tears. Not because I am sad, because I am filled with joy at the power and the credible things that we have to do what we do every day. And how women are thriving. Forget about pandemic. Women are just thriving through every single thing every day. And it's amazing to watch them do it, because we do it in such different ways, and we do it in such glorious ways. And so I'm excited about 2022 and what we got to look for. But I tell you, ladies, I'm telling you, if we just put our buckets down for a minute and stand and say, look, how can we do this thing differently? How can we walk into 2022 in a different and bold way? And sometimes that's going to be doing it big, and sometimes it's going to be just sitting down and looking at our schedules every day and say, how can I make a difference? What can I put on my schedule today? What can I put on my calendar today that's going to move somebody? What conversations that I can have? All those particular things. But I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do in 22, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity of where I sit every day. I'm grateful for each and every one of you all. And then we as women, I tell you, it is just exciting to be sitting where we are. I am just really grateful for the opportunities that we have. Sometimes it's challenging. I am so grateful for it all. So I want us to wrap up the conversation tonight to say what you're grateful for 2021. And then I want you to give us one thing that you think we as women can do differently in 2022 that's going to make a difference as we work together in 2022 to really change our lives and to really change our world. So I want each of you all to do that. And I'm going to start with those who have not been part of the conversation as much tonight. Angela, can you start with that wrap up with us?
Yes. What I'm grateful for in 2021 is family. My dad, my sister, my brother, my extended family, including our executive producer, who's my first cousin, and she'll be celebrating her birthday on the 1st. So I'm grateful for family. But something we need to do is, Martin Luther King said there's nothing more dangerous than conscientious stupidity. Power without knowledge is dangerous. And I'm gonna be really specific about it. We can look at our Hinds County Board of Supervisors and see the danger of having people in power, but who don't know what they need to be doing. We had a census in 2020, which means we're going to be redistricting. Is coming up. We need to get away from electing people because they're popular, they're nice. We need people who can make policy decisions that affect mass incarceration, that affect education, that affect food insecurity, and all of these other issues. And part of that is knowledge. So one of the things we need to make sure is that the people we are electing and have elected have the knowledge they need to do what we need done for our communities. Because it's just dangerous for people to have power but to not know what to do with it.
Amen. Next. Miss Angela Grayson.
Hey, so what I would say is what I'm most grateful for over 2021 is most definitely lessons learned. I think that I had a very successful year, to be honest with you. And when we talk about COVID and friend or foe, one of the things that was highlighted for me through COVID, it was just the disparities in my own household as far as what my daughters would do with their learning paths. So just being able to pull them from public school, which I am a proponent of public schools and a huge proponent of Jackson Public Schools, But just having that freedom that COVID gave me to kind of look at their individual learning paths and deciding what was best individually for my girls, switching from public schools to a private homeschool collective for my daughter, for my youngest, and then a boarding school for my oldest. That was very liberating and something that had been a dream of mine, to be able to teach them in a way that was holistic, in a way that centered Blackness and them being Black girls. So there was a huge lesson, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And when we think about going into 2022, one of the things that comes to mind that I hope that we're able to do more of, and kind of different, is collaboration. When we see all of this work being done in silos, I think that there's so much that Black women are already doing. I just hope that we could move toward coalition building, collaboration, versus those really good pockets of work being done in silos and kind of, hey, you have a really great skill set at this. I'm really good at this. Let's see where we can make those things meet so that we can do more political power building for Black women specifically, and so that we can see more Black women in public office.
Nikita?
Yeah, so what I'm thankful for 2021 is making new connections. I've made a lot of connections through Women for Progress and other spaces, and it just, COVID kind of isolates us. But through these connections, it's given me a lot of gratitude for people out there, because you can forget when you're in isolation. So that's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the connection, new people. And I think what I would love to see us take into 2022 is adopting moms and connecting with moms, because in my work with moms in this past 2 years in this pandemic, it's revealed that moms are feeling isolated, even more so. They're feeling alone. They need help. They need support. We need help. We need support. I'm a mom too. So littles, you hear them in the background. But we're afraid to ask, and we're afraid to reach out. And so I think as a whole, society often look at moms as, well, you have it. For centuries you've been doing this. You know how to do it. But moms are really struggling. And I think if we can adopt moms and connect with moms and just check in with moms and see how they're doing, I think that would impact our community. Because, if you want to look at the state of the community, the society, you want to look at the women, you want to look at the moms. And so I think that would be really powerful.
Ms. Portia?
Yes, what I've learned from and grateful for in 2021 is community. And by community, I mean my family, Women for Progress, the Urban League, all of those entities that I check in with. They are the groups that have gotten me through this period of mourning, and I'm going to call it period of mourning because we had to give up what was normal for us, but learning technology and how to use it. My community helped with that. Anytime I need to talk or a resource, my community helped with that. So I'm really, really thankful for my community. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without them, and continue to get through this without them. And I consider everyone on this call actually my community. One of the things that I'm learning and want to see going into 2022 is a succession plan. All of us need a succession plan. We have young women who are looking for opportunities to step in, to learn from us, and to be those next level leaders. But some of us, we are so busy. Sometimes we don't have time for young women, but we need to make the time for them. There's a group of dynamic women. When I see Teresa Jones, Teresa, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to tell your mom. She knows, she's like a daughter to me. But I know that there are other young women who are dynamic, who have come to me and said, hey, I want to learn this, or may I shadow you on this? No one's allowing me to do this, or I'm working at this particular organization. No one's giving me an opportunity to lead. We have great young minds that want to lead, and they're hungry for what we have to offer. So I want us to be able to, and I'm going to challenge myself to do it more, to slow down and be able to share with those young women who are out there in the community, because really what we sow is what we're going to reap. And if we don't sow anything, we're not going to get anything in 2022.
Wow. And Miss Pauline?
Wow, I'm just basking in what Teresa and Portia said. One of the big things for me that I've been grateful for in 2021 is the appreciativeness of the bloodline. The bloodline, whether that was blood, relatives, community, or non-blood. And just being appreciative and grateful of what I've been able to live with and to live without, and to make those adjustments. I've been appreciative of my mind, my health. It may not have been where my weight may not have been where I wanted, but I've been appreciative and grateful of where my health has been and what COVID has not done. That I could have been counted among the number. I know we're yet still in the pandemic, but I'm this far, and I'm grateful for that. It's like Angela was saying, I'd like to see in 2022 more coalition, but for me, less coalition, because coalitions come and go. I've learned that over the years and yet learning, but I'm looking more for alliances that will be long-lasting. And so that's what I'm looking for. And as Portia was saying, I've been in this work that I do nearing 40 years. And my state is still looking for a reentry model. Why are they looking for a reentry model? Because I'm not necessarily the color or the face of what they would like reentry to be. I have a 35-year zero recidivism, and it's not what I say, it's what can be proven among corrections. But I'm not discouraged by that. I'm not in competition. My loyalty is to the people that want to make a change and make a difference and no longer be crime creators in the community, but want to change, and I'm committed to that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Sharon?
I would like to say I'm thankful that 2021 is almost over. I'd also like to say that I'm thankful that God has kept me healthy. Also, my staff, as much as we're exposed to, none of my staff has contracted the virus. And I'm proud to say that we used precaution, we did our job, and we are all COVID-free and have been COVID-free for 2 years. Going into 2022, I would like to see less violence. I would like to see more. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I was raised by an older woman. I would like to see some of our moral values that we used to have, implemented, especially in our young women. I think part of the problem that we have with our violence could be that we have too many children having children, and that the children are basically raising themselves. Back in my day, if mama didn't get you to church, grandmama was going to wake you up and you was going to go to Sunday school. Well, nowadays you got grandmothers who are in their 30s, so you Friday nights and Saturday nights, you might have mama in the club and grandmama in the club too. So then when Sunday mornings come, where's the child? In the kitchen fixing a bowl of cereal and watching TV or who knows what. And grandmama is asleep and mama is asleep. Nobody's going to church, I would like to see more of our values reinstilled in the lives of our youth.
Okay. Judge? Judge Martin, did we get you?
No, well, finally figured out. I told you I was a little technologically challenged. Okay. Finally figured out how to mute. But ironically, Sharon, Grisham, Stewart, I guess great minds think alike. That's what I'm going to say, because what I wanted to see coming into 2022 was, I called it a moral and communal consciousness. I think we've lost, like you said, a lot of the core values that we all grew up on back when the whole community raised kids, and, you know, somebody else in the community could tell somebody else's child what to do, and it wasn't going to be a problem. And yes, I do spank I used to spank my kids. They're now taller and bigger than me, so I don't get away with that as much anymore. But back in the day, yes, they used to get spankings. And I think some of those things are discipline and punishment, having consequences for certain actions. We've taken a lot of that out, which has ultimately resulted, in my mind at least, to some of the violence and some of the other things that we're seeing in our community right now. But going back to the things that I'm grateful for is, number one, my health. I come from a very large family, mostly older people, and we have been just so very blessed that not only has anyone not passed away from COVID, we've had some people to pass. Like I said, it's an older population anyway, but nobody's passed away from COVID, and nor has anyone gotten COVID and gotten very ill. So just very grateful for that, and just grateful for family. You know, when we're quarantined and you can't get out, you can't do anything, you kind of have to look around at the people who are there with you, and you get to know them a lot better. I think somebody said you get to understand their learning differences, the children's learning differences and what you have to do. You get to understand your parents better. You hear some stories that you never even really knew or paid attention to. And another thing that I'm grateful for is our creativity and ability to pivot under these unusual circumstances. So those are my comments.
Okay. All right. Ms. Collins, did we get you?
No, ma'am. Try to be real brief. In 2021, I am grateful, first of all, for my God and my faith in Him. For my family. Everybody knows I love my 3 sons and my grandson and my granddaughter. They are my life. I am grateful for my yes, myself, my yes to my community, my yes to the call that God has placed on my life, and my yes to myself. Because I did pivot and listen to what He said. As I go into 2022, what I would like to see is more women bring more women. As Ms. Portia said, bring a woman with you, bring a young woman with you, just bring another woman with you to the table, wherever your table is, even if it's your kitchen table. Bring, and I would like to see more of us say yes. Say yes to be engaged in our community. Say yes to be empowered in our community, and say yes to being elected for our community.
Amen, sister. Amen. And my co-host, who I'm going to have to give a look, share some love on her. We at Women for Progress love Miss Teresa Jones. She, I always think about that movie, The Help, when they say, you are kind, you are beautiful, you are all those things. And every time I think about her, that's what I want to say, is that she is smart, she is kind, she is intelligent, she is passionate, she is committed. And a lot of times when I'm in my business, I got my business hat on every day. When I sit at the table with people that I want to work with, the number one thing that comes to mind for me is this somebody I can trust? Is this somebody that because I tell you, as I've gotten older, when I spend my quality time every day, it's got to be with some people that I trust. I'm just not going to be in a room or in an environment or in the circumstances if that's not somebody who does not have all of those things in play. And I love Miss Teresa Jones because she is somebody that we can trust. We love her. She has a bright, bright, bright future. We keep our eyes on her. We're so excited about who she is. We're always excited about the work she brings to Women for Progress. Of course, we have to say that. but we're excited about who she is as a person who she already has a wonderful plan for herself. We pray for you every day, Teresa Jones. We love you so much. And I tell you, if you ever need us, you know we're a phone call away. So we appreciate you, okay? And I don't know if we let you talk about what you're grateful for and what we can do. So I'll let you be the last one to have that conversation.
Oh, Miss Willie, like, you mean the world to me. All of what Women for Progress of Mississippi has done for me, it's just been amazing. What I am thankful for, I'm thankful for purpose, and I'm thankful for the love of Black women. Last month, I lost my godmother, who is like one of the closest things to me next to my mom. And it was a very tough time because all these things y'all say about me, it's like, that was poured into me by a Black woman who didn't know me, who just picked me up in church and said, I'm going to take care of you. And I start thinking about the things that I've done with myself and the things that I've been able to do this year. I'm thankful for that purpose that's been just kind of poured into my heart, that I feel like God has put on my heart, because oftentimes there's so many people just kind of, living without purpose, and they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't know what they want to do because they haven't been able to just kind of be poured into by people who love them, and just kind of, follow that kind of nudge that God put on their heart, because every single person on this planet has purpose. You just have to figure out what it is. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for purpose, because it's so easy to get distracted by things, shiny things here and there. But when you have that purpose on your heart and you're following it, you're just going to always keep fulfilling God's plan. You're always going to be doing the things that God has in store for you, and everything will always work out. And I believe that is because I've had so many Black women and people to just pour into me and love me and like help me move forward. I say all the time, like, I wanted to go to Yale for a campaign training, and Miss Willie made it happen. I wanted to, like, the things that I wanted to do with myself, I've had Black women, Miss Portia, Miss Jennifer Riley Collins, like, I've had all of y'all kind of in my corner just pouring into me. And I choose to do that for other women. I choose to do that for other people. And, no matter what, that's what I want to bring into 2021 and the rest of my life. That's what I want to say. I am so thankful for purpose and the love of Black women. And I want that to be what we continue to do in 2021 and for the many years to come. Thank you.
Well, wow, you all have been incredible tonight. I thank you all so very much. I want to say that in my own life, I have so much. It's hard for me to even have this conversation, because it's like, for me, everything is just a no-brainer. Where I sit, where I breathe. But I tell you, I am so grateful that God gives me joy every single day of my life. Every single day of my life. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I have some tough days. I have some challenging days. But there is not a day that goes by that I don't feel some type of joy. And I'm one of these crazy personalities. I am grateful for challenges. I love challenges. I love to wake up every morning knowing that I'm going to be faced with something that I'm going to have to push through, that I need to succeed on, that I need to accomplish at the end of the day, so that I can be all that I am. And I get an opportunity to do that every single day. And it's not easy. I have a lot of mountains to climb. Some days I'm in some valleys, but it's all so very, very, very wonderful, because I know that God has me. He has a purpose for me. I live my purpose. And I tell you, it is not easy. We women make it look easy every day. We do it every day with what we do, and we say, oh my goodness, we make it look so smooth. But I'm telling you, it's challenging every single day, and that's okay, because that's life. That's what it's about. But we have to grab a hold of it every day. No matter what comes our way, we grab a hold of it and we say, hey, what am I going to do with this today? And that's how we look at it. It's all about how we look at it and what we choose to do every day. And we look at every single thing as an opportunity. Even those people that come and contacted us, we say, oh my goodness, how did I get in the room with this person today? Look at it and say, what is this opportunity? What is this going to help me grow? What is going to help me do? And sometimes you don't have to be happy with the people. Sometimes your blessings come your way. It's not for that person who you think, oh, I love this person and they're so kind and they're so shiny. Sometimes that opportunity is in with that person, but you just take it for what it is and you move on every day. But I am so grateful for Joy. I'm so happy about what we're going to be doing in 2022. I have zero doubt that our 22 is going to be much bigger, much better, much more wonderful, much more careful, much more everything than it was in 2021. And what I'm loving and excited about is that all of us is going to be doing it together. We're going to be doing it together in very new ways, very challenging ways. And I tell you, we have every single thing we need to make it happen and to make it happen big for us. Let us all work together holding hands to help us accomplish our dreams, our goals, and not only success for ourselves, but the success for our families, our children, our friends, our relatives, our leadership, our state, our country, our world. Let's make sure that we work together to make it happen. Thank you all so much for joining Women for Progress Radio Network tonight. I see so many friends and family that was in the comments tonight that joined us. We thank you for being part of this conversation tonight. It's not just about us. We give claps and hands to our executive producer, Miss Juanita Brown. Let me tell you what makes a good producer. One is that she's committed. Because even when we don't show up on time and when we don't do what we need to do, Miss Brown is there. She never gives up on this programming. She never gives up on this organization. She comes together and she brings her passion. She brings her commitment. She brings her intelligence. She brings her experience. She brings her love. She brings her care. Everything to what she does as executive producer of the Women for Progress Radio Network. I know for sure, and Oprah always say there's some things that you know for sure. One thing that I know for sure is this network would not have been half as successful as it has been for over 11 years without her leadership, without her care, without her love, and everything that she brings to this table. She makes us making it look easy. We come on and we're ready. You know, we women, we can talk and we can have some conversations. But to be able to do the work behind the scenes and be able to put wind beneath our wings during this programming, we're so grateful for her and what she does. I'm so proud of her, and I just sit wonderful that I'm able to be able to work with her every day in making sure that this network continues to grow. And if you want to be part of the Women for Progress Radio Network, I want you to reach out to her and find out how you can come and bring your conversation, your voices, your topics, your issues to her. Our telephone number is 601-918-5137, or you can email us at womenforprogressinc@gmail.com. womenforprogressinc@gmail.com if you have a conversation, a topic, or something that you would like for us to address. Stay tuned to Women for Progress, the organization. I tell you, if you liked what we did in 2021, you better hold on to your socks, because these women are going to be doing some amazing things in 2022. What leadership that's at this table, and all the work that we're going to be doing to really make ourselves continue to be whole in 2022. We're excited about it. If you're a woman and you're looking for an organization, now we're not a sorority, we're not a social club. We are a community service organization. So that means you got to bring something to the table. Your talent, your time, your resources, all three, or just pick one and bring it to this table, and we're going to do some wonderful things with it. Whether you got 15 minutes or whether you got 15 hours or if you got $1, or if you got $100. We want it. We want to. We appreciate your work and your support, and would love to have you at this table. This has been a wonderful year. We look forward to moving forward and doing wonderful things. Stay tuned to womenforprogress.net, our website, womenforprogressradio.com, our Facebook page. We're on Instagram, Twitter. You can find us everywhere. Continue to like us, support us, share the work that we do, and make sure you continue to share the information. This has been Women for Progress Radio End of Year Roundtable, and we thank everyone for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful holiday, and please be safe. If you haven't been vaccinated, get it done tomorrow morning. Get vaccinated tomorrow morning. If you've been vaccinated and you're eligible, get boosted tomorrow morning, okay? And make sure that we walk and be safe with each other and be our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper every day of our lives. Thank you all so much. Women for Progress Radio. Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Fuller.
Good evening.